Dive back into that story a little bit, how we can help young people understand there's much more to this dietitian thing. You might think dietitian, huh? Diet. What? Talk about that a little more because sometimes we need to enlighten our young people.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking about it more. So, I mean, when he brought that up, I truly felt open-minded because I had never heard of that. And I didn't feel like 100% into the ideas I had had. I was like, oh, psychology is interesting, but I don't really know what I would want to do with that. And teaching is interesting, but I don't know if I want to be a teacher. Which funny enough, I wanted to be a health teacher, so different path, but kind of makes sense, I guess. So I felt genuinely open-minded to it. I looked at the courses and science, it's a very science-heavy profession. Um, and I was cool with that. Science is cool with me. It's not like, I was actually presenting at a middle school the other day, and I wanted to encourage people, if you can complete a course, whether it be science, math, English, whatever it might be, it doesn't have to be your favorite, but if you can complete it and keep up with it, it might get you where you want to be. Sometimes I feel like when people talk about careers, they say, well, if you love science and if you love math, this is the thing for you. And I just want to say that's not me. I wouldn't say that I love textbook science. I'm interested by science and I'm competent at learning it and taking the tests and getting. And so it's gotten me to where I have to be. But I just want to say that because I don't want people to think, well, it's not my favorite subject, so I shouldn't go into this career path. That might not be that wasn't the case for me. And so I looked at the courses and they seemed interesting enough to me. And so I kind of started down that path. And I have gravitated towards, and when I was just listing all those different jobs, I've gravitated towards a lot of public sector type of positions because I'm really interested in working with people and working with policies. Like that is a passion that fills my cup. And those moments, I feel really lucky. I have moments in my job where I think, dang, I'm in the right spot. This feels right. And for me, the public sector is that. But I mean, any major food company, the Coca-Colas, the Frito-Lays, the Orchard Market. I mean, they're all going to have Meyer, the grocery store chain. They all have dietitians. There's food scientists that are dietitians that are working in a lab. So there's a ton of different options that you can utilize that dietitian degree and becoming certified as a registered dietitian. I mentioned all the public sector ones because those are what really kind of keep me motivated and keep me going.
You were going into some really cool stuff at the end of the previous segment, and I want you to kind of expand on that for me. But please weave in the psychology because, if you don't have that food source or you don't, I mean, you went into some really good stuff, and I want to just let you turn you loose. So please weave in a little bit of that psychology too, because so much of our eating is mental.
Yeah, and so those questions whenever I'm working with people, that I encourage them to ask themselves when they're deciding if they're in the position to decide. Because I mean, depending on the group I'm working with, somebody else might be making their food choices for them. But the
What does that
idea,
mean, Deborah, when you say that other people are making the choices for them? Is like their parents or
yeah,
a government
so
agency, or maybe it's a hospital? Is that what you're referring to?
or it could be that someone else in the house does the grocery shopping. It could
Oh,
be
gotcha.
that, yeah, they're a student that is getting meals at school that somebody else, they might have some choices, but we might not have the whole grocery store that we have
Gotcha.
access to for lots of different reasons, right? And so what I try to encourage people with that, what do you want? What do you need? And what do you have? Is really empowering yourself with the food choices that you have access to and knowing that your preferences and your input does matter. So when you talk about mental health and when we talk about food, we all have experienced different levels of diet culture, food shame, control. All you have to do is be at just about any gathering, social gathering of people, and there'll be comments about, are you really going to go up for seconds? Or how come you don't have more on your plate? Or just kind of commenting on people's food choices, right? And that's maybe a topic for a different day, but what I want to encourage people is to first check in with themselves. What do you want? Not what does somebody else want for you, not what do you think you should have because whatever. Like start with what do you want? Do you want a certain taste? Do you want a certain texture? What do you want to eat? What sounds good? And I think for a lot of people, something's going to come to mind, whether it's a favorite food or something that they have a craving for. So starting with that, what you want, and just starting there and acknowledging it doesn't mean we're always going to only eat the first choice of what we want. I mean, that's not reality, but checking in with ourselves from a mental health standpoint, starting with what are my choices? What do I want? Instead of what can sometimes be centering the pressure or the um, kind of narratives that are coming from other people.
How would you like people to connect with you, the agencies you work for, books you might recommend, any of that kind, anything you want to share right now, plug, plug, plug. Please go right ahead. Tell everybody what you're available to do, maybe not available to do, phone numbers. Please go right ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So the two places that I work that I can be reached at, one of them is the Muskegon Area Intermediate School District. So if you're somebody that works with K through 12 schools, I do a variety of programming relating to farm to school and trauma-informed nutrition with those age groups and with the staff associated with those age groups. So I can be reached at my email address. So that is DWARREN, Warren, at muskegonisd.org. So if you're interested in connecting related to education, K-12 education, that's a great spot to get a hold of me. I also work for Trinity Health Muskegon, so that's much more clinical as an inpatient and outpatient dietitian. And for that, I really would encourage people to just reach out to my phone number, 231-375-9718. I loved earlier today, Tom, when you said the secret, not so secret. That's how I feel about my number. My number is all over the place. 231-375-9718. You can text me, call me. I mean it when I say I really enjoy my favorite part of my job of being a dietitian is connecting with people surrounding food. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, maybe we should have a virtual cup of coffee and talk a little bit more, please reach out to me either over email, text, or call, and let's chat.
How we can help them start to understand why the macros are important and how they will find out if they're deficient in these. Is it their physical? Is it their blood work? What is it? Go ahead. You're the doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's what I mean. Unfortunately, I don't have as clear of an answer as a lot of people are going to want because we're all different. The starting point is we need a variety of foods. We need proteins, we need carbohydrates, and we need fats. The reality is that we are all different with how many of those we need. That's just true. And the makeup of what those are. Because if you have, especially now, my clinical background is coming out. I don't know by looking at you, Tom. You don't know by looking at me what's going on inside my body. You don't know how
Right.
my kidneys are working. You don't know how my liver is working. You don't know how my blood is flowing. And so that part, knowing that we all need some protein, some carbohydrates, and some fats, the specifics of how much and the composition of what those are made of. For example, like you brought up coconut oil. I don't eat very much coconut oil because I have a family history of high cholesterol and I try to keep my saturated fat down because of that, right? But you wouldn't know that, right? And so getting to know ourselves, both our past medical history, our family risks, right? Our blood work, um, any underlying conditions, chronic kidney disease, prediabetes, anything like that, as well as how we're feeling. A lot of times people come to me and they might know some of that past medical history, but also they're fatigued, they're tired, or they're not going to the bathroom regularly and they don't feel well, all those kind of things. So that's what we start individually digging into to say, okay, what do you need at a more granular level? And that is exactly why I say, where starting with us is most important because we can't just throw out blanket things. Besides that, we all need water and hydration, and we need some level of carbs, fat, and protein. That's about as general as we get, right? But the specifics of what you need and how much, we need to get to know ourselves. And we can be one of those people, as far as checking in, how do we feel? I think someone that you trust on your healthcare team, whether it's a doctor, a PA, somebody like that, you may consider a registered dietitian. But there's other folks that you could go see as well. Some people connect with personal trainers depending on what their goals are. And so I think starting that process, and then you kind of, you narrow it down and you keep going on that journey.
Let's spin it and go into the positive area real quick before we go into the GLP stuff. And I promise you guys, we're going to talk about the GLP stuff and some of the food initiatives that Deborah's connected with to promote those. But you have a joy for gardening and some of the other joys that go along with food, and they're because it's such a wide field.
Hmm.
Can you talk about some of those things here and how you enjoy? Because in your notes you talk about the school gardens and the hospital and all of this, and with the boys, all the
Yeah.
cool things that you're doing, food connections.
Yeah.
Please talk about all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the joy of food, and when it even comes to that guiding question of what do you want, I think it would serve us well to look at that bigger picture, not just food we're literally eating, but food experiences. So it might be learning to cook or learning to bake or picking out, just letting yourself open a cookbook and maybe something will speak to you that you want to try, or gardening, all on a very regular basis. People that haven't done those experiences before feel intimidated, by, oh, I don't know how to cook, or I'm not a good cook, or I don't have a green thumb, right? You hear all of those kind of self-doubt. And so I just want to encourage people to try, and that we are all messing it up all the time. I've been gardening for over 15 years now. Not all my plants live. That's not how it works. I've been cooking for even longer. Not everything is a home run. Sometimes I burn things, I mean, I make mistakes. And so that's just part of enjoying those experiences and trying those experiences. And so when you think of what you want and when you think of food, I would just encourage people to really sit with themselves like, am I interested in any of that stuff? And if I am, what's maybe some way I could start small or explore that a little bit more? Because from a mental health standpoint, wow, it's all there. We know that the benefits from a psychological standpoint, and then that plays into the physical, right? You eat more vegetables. I work in schools with food service departments because you eat more fruits and vegetables as a human, which our government wants healthier people. If you have experiences growing fruits and vegetables. And so, we have all of this research and all of this information. And so, in that, what do you want piece, I would just encourage people to think about that, maybe even on a bigger scale, because there might be some potential joy in there for them, and maybe even some healing. If you never were outside before and now you have a little potted plant that you watch grow and nurture, that can be pretty rewarding. So, just encouraging people with that.
That can be efficient, but we don't want to become dependent. But take it from your perspective, Ms. Dietitian.
Yeah, so from my perspective, those medications are, I look at them clinically, the same way that I look at when somebody takes a medication for high cholesterol or for hypertension or for diabetes. These are chronic diseases. And so if somebody's has obesity and has a chronic disease, and a medication can help them be on the path, towards a healthier outcome, those medications, whether it's GLP-1s, whether it's, I mentioned hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, I've those medications are never meant to be a standalone to be most effective. If you take that and that's all you do, well, that's the results that you get. But if there's other things in your control, whether it's, physical activity, whether it's what you choose to drink, what you choose to eat, your stress, your sleep, I mean, all of those factors impact those chronic diseases. And so anytime somebody is using a medication as a tool, if that's the only thing they choose, they will not have as much of an outcome, as if they're staying well hydrated and being physically active and eating a variety of foods and, stress management, all those other things. And so to me, GLP-1s are in that same category as any other medication that somebody takes for a chronic disease.
I at this point here in this episode, Deborah, please talk about the Michigan food initiatives that you're connected with and some of the good things that, policymakers can make, public sector can make changes, can affect change. Go ahead. Some of the things that you're passionate about that we need to promote, go right ahead.
So, one thing I want to promote and express some gratitude for is that Michigan is a state that we have universal meals for all, which affects our K through 12 students. And that means that in Lansing, our government approved and put in our budget so that all school students can have access to breakfast and lunch without filling out any free and reduced forms or without qualifying, quote unquote. They still might fill out those forms because they get federal money, but that's kind of in the weeds. So what that means is it reduces the stigma and it improves food access. So when I was in school, you might have different levels. So some kids got free meals, some kids had to pay cash, some kids were in between, and we would get divided. And there was just a whole social component. You mentioned bullying, in the past, like it was a whole thing. So that's all gone now. Everybody's just the same. If you're showing up and you want breakfast, you want lunch, we have universal meals for all. It's a combined state and federal funding so that all of our kids have access to food. And that's a big win. I'm really grateful that our state has that and that our representatives and our state senators are continuing to put that in the budget. So it looks like that will continue. So that's a group that I am on advocacy for. I go to Lansing, I meet with people to continue universal meals for all in Michigan. That's really great. I'm part of a Michigan Food and Nutrition Access Task Force with the Michigan Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So I was on that for a couple of years where we were just trying to look. Muskegon, or not Muskegon, Michigan is pretty high in food insecurity when we look at our whole country. And so we're trying to look as a task force at things that are working in other places to improve food and nutrition access for our residents, and what can dietitians, our professional group specifically, do to help be a part of that solution. And we have a Michigan farm to school network that I'm a steering committee member for. So if you're somebody that's interested in some of this stuff from a farm to school standpoint, this is a newly formed, it's for early care. So if you're working with like preschool or Head Start or Great Start, it's for any early care age kids as well as K through 12. So that is the Michigan Farm to Youth Network that you can join. Anybody can join. It's for anybody that's interested, and it has resource sharing. It's just a free kind of community of practice statewide to lift each other up.
That was fantastic. And I just found another whole card for the show. Debra Warren, registered dietitian, working in food initiatives. She's got a great presentation. She's obviously talked about this a lot. She really knows her stuff. And this food situation is very, very important for us to understand. Like I told you guys during the episode, I didn't have a clue as to macros. I really, I kind of knew about health, fats, carbohydrates, no idea on the numbers, no idea on the types. This is going to add a lot of value to our radio program, and I appreciate Debra coming on very much, and Mitch for recommending her to be a guest. Until next time, everybody, I'm Papa Tom. We're recording this right before the 4th, the 250th anniversary of our country. Congratulations to our country. Congratulations to all of the United States citizens out there. Enjoy, be safe, and have a great, great day. Until next time, everybody. Peace out. Love y'all. I'm Papa Tom. We'll talk to you next time. We're out.